Yeah, potatoes are a staple at Thanksgiving, at Christmas, at New Year's, any one of those sort of holiday family gatherings. And these are some really easy herbed oven roasted potatoes. So let's get to it. Now I want to get our herb mixture going first so that these herbs can sit in the olive oil, just sort of release their flavor. And there's 3 dry herbs that we're working with. We're working with some thyme, some sage, and some rosemary. Got to get these prepped and get these ready. First thing I want to do is I want to get everything off the stems here. So we're just going to pick these rosemary leaves off the stems. If a little bit of stem gets in there, it's not going to hurt anything. We're going to be chopping these up, but we don't want this sort of thing in there. Love that smell of rosemary. Sometimes it'll come off really easy like that. It's really this main stem, as I said, that we want to avoid getting in there. Well, that's looking good for our rosemary there. Now our sage, same thing. We just want to pick the sage leaves off. This combination here of thyme and sage and rosemary is just a classic sort of Thanksgiving flavor bundle. In fact, this is from a poultry seasoning packet. We're using fresh herbs here. And let me set the thyme aside for a minute because we're just going to go ahead and chop up these 2, break them down a bit. If you wanted to, you could throw these in a food processor. Gonna break these down really good. The smell from this right now is wonderful. Go ahead and get this out of the way here into our bowl. And then for the thyme, we're just gonna take these pieces and we're gonna kind of strip the thyme leaves off of here in little bits. If some of the stem gets in, that's all right, but really we just want to try and get the little leaves off, and it can be a little difficult. And if we need to, we'll chop these up some more. And if it's really fresh, they really want to hold on there. But thyme adds such a great flavor to this and such a great aroma. Any of those stems that fall in, just pick them out. It does take a little bit of work here, but it's worth it. And if you just do it backwards on the stem, they pull off pretty easily most of the time. Kind of like cutting against the grain. And this was like a 1 ounce package of fresh poultry seasoning herbs. And if any of the stems fall in there, just pick them out. And you can always adjust this to taste. If you like more of this sort of seasoning, just add a little bit more, especially if you're using dried. That's really easy, but add it in small amounts, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon at a time, and then taste it before you toss your potatoes in it. This is also probably a good time to preheat your oven to 400 degrees, because that's how we're gonna be doing our potatoes today, in the oven at 400 degrees. You could do these out on the grill, the pellet grill, the smoker, anything you want, as long as you can get that 400 degree temperature. If you can't get it that high and hold it that high, 350 will do, but 400 works really well. We're gonna be going for probably 25 to 35 minutes, and we'll check it. If it's not tender enough, we'll let it go more. To this, I'm gonna add about 1 teaspoon of crushed garlic. If you don't like that much garlic, dial it back. You like it more, add more. And crushed really is the best thing to be used here rather than diced. I'm also gonna add, I don't know, maybe 1/4 teaspoon of cracked black pepper and 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now, 1/4 cup of olive oil. And I'm gonna take my massively oversized whisk and mix this together. What we want is really sort of a paste here. We're not going for a super liquidy consistency, because this is just gonna be tossed with the potatoes once they're roasted. We're gonna coat them after they're done while they're nice and warm. We will be seasoning them with a little bit of salt and pepper before they go in the oven, but this is gonna be the main flavoring here. And now for a little unusual secret ingredient here, just maybe 1/2 teaspoon of honey. Just a little squirt. Mix that up in there. A little bit of sweetness with that savory, never hurts. Little taste here, just so we can see how we're doing. All right, let's set this aside and get our potatoes ready. So I've got 3 pounds of potatoes here, and I want to break these down into roughly even-sized pieces. You can see we got a couple here that are smaller than some of the larger ones. Let me take one of the larger ones here first. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it in half. Then I'm going to cut that in half. So really, this is about the size piece I'm looking for, 1 inch to 1.5 inches. And these ones are a little bit bigger than that, so I'm actually going to go in half there and half there. And size-wise, those are looking good. Let's cut up the rest of these. So the smaller one here, I think we're just going to do 2 cuts. If you have any blemishes on there, just cut them off. So with our cut potatoes in a bowl here, I just want to hit these with a little bit of olive oil, maybe a tablespoon or two. Mix those up. I'm going to season these with some kosher salt and some cracked black pepper. Toss everybody around. A little bit more salt. Now let's get these on our baking sheet and get them in the oven. So I just have my baking sheet right here, and I'm going to go ahead and place these potatoes skin side down. I'm going to try and fit everybody we can here. And once you have them out of the mixing bowl that you toss them in with all that seasoning and a little bit of oil, save that bowl. We're going to be mixing them with the finished seasoning, that poultry mix, once they're done, using that same bowl. If there's any excess oil in it, you can wipe that out. And as far as the time goes with the oven, every oven is different. 25 to 35 minutes is an estimate, a guide, but you want to check these for tenderness to make sure they are done to your liking. Some people like them a little, less soft. I like them fairly soft. Let's get everybody fitting in here. Break up our neat rows. All right, let's get these in our 400 degree preheated oven, 25 to 30 minutes until they're tender. So our potatoes took 35 minutes to get tender here. You can see by just sliding in my Thermapen, nice and easy. So now let's go ahead and transfer these to our bowl, get our seasoning on them, and have a taste. Gonna go ahead and get our herb mixture on here. Toss these around. Get a good coating on everybody here. Now, if you were gonna make these the day before, what I would do is take it all the way through this step, then refrigerate it, and when you're ready to make them, to heat them up, I would do 300 degrees in a pan in the oven, covered. So just throw them in a foil pan or some sort of baking pan, but make sure it's tightly covered with foil. 300 degrees for maybe half an hour. It really depends on your oven. Check them for the temperature you want at that time. Heat them more if you need to. It'll be good. All right, let's go ahead and plate these up. Now you can do these with any type of potato you want. I just really love red potatoes. To me, they have just sort of a little bit of a rustic feel when you cook them like this with their skin on, and I really like that, especially in roasted potatoes. They still end up with that sort of creamy center when they're cooked right. And I want to hit these with some fresh chives that I've diced up. Chives and potatoes go great together. You could also hit this with some Parmesan cheese, anything you want. And there you go, easy oven roasted herbed potatoes. Looking great, smelling great. I'm gonna dive in. And these are super tender, just need a fork. This is Thanksgiving. This is the flavor of Thanksgiving. Maybe Christmas too, but really it is that Thanksgiving flavor for a potato, just fantastic. Just nice soft inside. If you want it even softer, let it go until it's as soft as you want. It's really about checking for that tenderness. Use the end of a temperature probe like I did, or you could just use, a thin knife. Works really well. And also remember, experiment with flavors. I love that poultry seasoning on there, but if you want to add something else to it, give it a try. Maybe you have a favorite barbecue rub you want to try on these. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as it comes out tasting the way you want and pleases the people you're cooking for.